Is everybody ready? Nobody's going to say no? Okay. All right. So welcome to the Makerspace. I'm glad everybody could find it. But yeah, so for those of you who are participating digitally, the Makerspace is located at SPN 2.220. We are in the Synergy Park North building, which is kind of to the left of the 7-Eleven and north side over by the testing center. We're on the second floor to the right. There's a big glass window and it's hard to miss us. Feel free to stop by, say hi, and check out the Makerspace on your own time. And for everybody in person, hello. My name's Hudson Samuels. I'm the president of the Makerspace, and I've been working here since about the beginning of fall in that position. Before that, I was the online security manager, and I've been an officer here since about fall 2021. But yeah, this kickoff's going to give you a general summary of our technology, the events we're planning to host, as well as student organizations here and committees that you can join. The goal of this presentation is pretty much to get you involved in everything that we have here and kind of help you understand what you may or may not be interested in. So with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and get started unless anybody has any pressing questions about the Makerspace in general. All right. You good? Cool. All right. So first, let's just jump into what most people use the Makerspace for. So for those of you who don't know, all of our services are free. We only ask that you bring your own materials. So our primary service, or rather what people use the most, is our 3D printing services. So we allow people to print as long as they bring their own PLA filament. You can get this for about $20 per kilogram, and it's available at a variety of stores. So for example, Micro Center, Amazon, or just directly from a brand. Generally just work off of what has the best reviews online if you're going to shop there. We also allow certain other filaments like PETG, which is a bit of a tougher filament under certain restrictions. Difference being PLA can warp a little bit easier, and there's certain tolerances that it'll break under versus PETG. We also have multiple 3D printers available. So that includes a variety of Ender 3 Pros. We have one for prototyping that prints really fast, but at a slightly lower quality. And then we also have 3 equipped with just the standard nozzle that you would get if you went to Micro Center and bought one for yourself. We have a Prusa Mini Plus, which is set up for PETG. So if you want to do like little minifigs for Dungeons and Dragons or just like other general smaller tools or things that really have to be tough and durable. And then we also have a, I believe it's Kiti, something like that, Tech 1 dual extruder printer, which you can use to actually print with 2 different filaments at once. So if you need multiple colors, or if you want to print supports where they come off when you rinse them in water, you can do that. We won't be going into like full training for this, but we do offer 3D printing training online. We don't provide any official certifications or anything like that. However, it'll give you enough information to where you can sort of get started as a hobbyist, and you'll be able to print things on your own here. Everything is self-serve, so as long as the printer's open, you're more than welcome to use it. And our training is asynchronous and completely free, available on our website. This is the only time I'm really going to mention it, so you will see it in future slides just as kind of like a terms and conditions thing. But if you go to learn.utd.ms, that is our little section of our website to where you can receive all that training. And that includes our 3D printers, VR, laser cutter, and just a general and safety training for all things Makerspace. So does anybody have any questions about that before we move on? All right, awesome. And next is our laser cutter. So similar to the 3D printers, we just ask that you bring your own material. We have a variety of allowed materials such as plywood, acrylic, cardboard, and there's a whole list of approved materials on our wiki, which you can also find on our website that was listed at the start of this presentation, utd.ms. Certain materials aren't allowed because they're coated in toxic substances or have other issues such as leather, which is typically coated with a toxic substance that'll create fumes, which we really don't want. You can use any image or pattern through the Glowforge software. And that includes vectorized and rasterized images. I believe it'll try its best to trace it. And there's a whole bunch of uses for laser cutting. So you can cut something. So if you want to cut into separate pieces or like create a little coaster, that's a perfect circle. And you can also engrave a material. So let's say you have like a wooden sign that you want to hang outside of your house that has your family's name on it, or you want to engrave a little design in a coaster, something like that. You can do that with pretty much any material that doesn't create a toxic fume here. Anybody have any questions about that? Yes.
Oh, well, not the engraving, but for the wiki, does it also list the approved materials for 3D printing also?
So we only allow PLA by default, but students are allowed to ask for different materials. It's kind of like a case-by-case basis. So, for example, if you're printing something that really has to have a lot more strength and may need to be more heat resistant, PETG may be allowed on a case-by-case, but generally just PLA is what we allow.
And does the wiki also list that too, just in case? Or...
Yeah, so the wiki does cover what materials are allowed, and that's also covered in our 3D printer training, which is mandatory to use our printers. So all that information, pretty much everything that isn't in depth here, that sounds like a necessity for you to know, will be covered in a training if you choose to take it. And students just aren't able to sign in to a given computer for a technology unless they've received that training. So we're sure to make sure everybody kind of receives that proper information. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. So this is a new thing that we're offering this semester. It was also available a little bit at the end of last semester and over the summer. We actually have a new VR and media room. So that's the room right there to everybody's left. You can kind of see the green screen in the left corner of that room, but we have a room completely dedicated to recording media with a green screen as well as virtual reality. So there are many uses for this room, such as creating a recording with green screen. So if you want to insert yourself into a video, or you want to do a mixed reality recording where you're playing in VR and you use the motion trackers to kind of detect where you are in the game. So you've got like a front video, your green screen, and then the stuff behind you. You can make one of those videos. And then we also just have a bunch of software to really learn how to use VR. So Unity, for example, is available for game developers that really want to utilize it to create software, games, or anything along those lines that they want to experience in a more in-depth format than just a computer screen. So some previous examples that I've seen for VR include like surgery and training, just like different tools to kind of assist professionals in learning things. Then other game engines can also be evaluated if you need one of those. So maybe like Unreal Engine or something like that. If you need one of those development tools, just ask an officer and we'll kind of discuss it just to make sure that it's something we can install. We also have Google Earth VR. So if you want to explore the world and kind of use Street View, I'm sure most of you are familiar with using that on Google Maps at some point. You can go ahead and use Google Earth VR to just tour different like locations and landmarks across the world. They do have 3D for pretty much everywhere. Obviously, it's more detailed on like the Eiffel Tower compared to your house, but it's up to you. And then you can also play games if nobody's using the room for about 30 minutes, I believe. You'll have to check the rules outside the room, but we allow games like Minecraft from a whole new perspective by playing it in virtual reality. I will say, be prepared because it does become a horror game real quick. Getting blown up by a creeper for the first time is not fun. You can also use tools like Beat Saber or I forget the name, Pistol Whip VR, I think, as a workout tool. Lots of people use those rhythm games as a way to really like move their body around and get immersed in a game while also working out. And you can also learn VR for the first time by using tools like the Steam VR tutorial and Valve's The Lab game, which has just a complete variety of games that people can try out. And like stated before with our other technologies, this is all free to use. We just asked you to do the proper training. So does anybody have any questions about this room? It's all new, so if anybody wants to get any details figured out or wants to know about the software.
Vive?
Yeah, so we do have an HTC Vive. It's just your standard setup, headset controllers and all. Yes?
When it comes to like VR using the equipment in the tool or in the computer, for example, if we want to bring like our own headset or additional tracking and things like that, would that be possible?
So at this time, we're not allowing additional headsets just because it's kind of a complex setup for us because you would have to plug it in, possibly set it up with the room setup and all sorts of stuff. It's just generally at this time, it's not something we've really looked into, but maybe we can look into that if it's something that anybody's interested in.
And additional trackers. From my knowledge, it's pretty easy to set up additional trackers. So
Okay. Well, it's also just like the plugging in of everything, you know, so takes time, and then if something gets unplugged and isn't plugged back in, that would be a bit of an issue. But yeah, I mean, we're always welcome to ideas. So if anybody has anything they want to do, just feel free to ask an officer. Anyone else?
We have somebody typing in
Okay.
chat right now.
Somebody might be asking a question online, so we're just gonna wait a sec. Let me see. So someone said you mentioned there's a printer set up for PETG use for items like D&D miniatures, but it seems we need approval from an officer to use it. Could you go into detail what they may refuse that request for? So generally, we refuse requests that seem kind of unnecessary to use PETG or a smaller printer. So for example, if you're printing something that doesn't really require that additional tensile strength, so let's say you're doing, I don't know, like a rapid prototype or something that doesn't actually need to stand up to the pressure of like a full-on project, like Lifetime. That could be one instance, but it's kind of a case by case. Another might be just something to show on your shelf, you're not going to be touching it super often, so there's not really a reason to use PETG for that. So most cases we just ask that people use PLA, but people are allowed to ask to use the smaller printer or PETG if they need to.
Understood. Thanks. Was their
Yeah.
response.
Awesome. Any other questions? Yes.
How many headsets do you have?
So we only have one headset at the moment, but I do know that if this station's taken, either you can just wait until it's not being used because we do have like a maximum time for gaming, or you can just ask if somebody's going to be done soon. But also I believe ATEC may have a VR lab. I've heard something about that, so you may want to check with them if you need multiple headsets for any reason. Any other questions?
We might have.
Just gonna wait a sec.
While my laptop takes flight.
All right. Any consideration for other materials like TPU, ABS for the printers, or are they outright not okay? Like mentioned before, if you just present an idea to the officers, we can discuss it and see if it's possible. I've definitely had interest in trying TPU. So for those of you that don't know, that's kind of like a flexible filament, but it does require like a certain type of printer to be used effectively. We do have a direct drive Ender 3, if you know what that means, which you might just because you said TPU. But yeah, so just bring up the idea to an officer if you're wanting to print like a phone case or something. And as long as there's a present use case, then yeah, I think we could definitely look into that.
I will also add on that ABS is not allowed due to toxic fume issues with it.
That's true, yeah. I forgot the ABS part, but... And generally PLA is better. All right. Also, we only have one printer. Yeah, so there's only one printer physically configured for PETG at the moment, but we can look into setting up one of the Enders if necessary now that we have direct drive, so... Yeah. Any other questions from anyone? All right, cool. So another new thing that we're offering this semester, you may have seen it in the back already. If not, there's a picture. So we're actually creating an arcade cabinet. The entire build of it is pretty much done. It's just really the software that we're working on for the most part. So the arcade cabinet has commercial games on it, but just to be clear, the main intent of this is to show off student showcase games. So for those of you that don't know, there's an organization on campus called SGDA, or the Student Game Developer Association. They meet here. You'll hear more about them shortly, but SGDA has game jams and other events to really promote game development, and we wanted to give a chance for game developers to show off what they make in the makerspace. And this is really one of our first ventures into trying to show off what CS students and other programmers can really do. So this was a very pricey project, but we're hoping it'll be worth it in the end. We've seen a lot of use from it so far, whether it's just people killing time while they wait for their print to finish, or people wanting to check out games that students have made. So definitely check it out, and let students know if you like their games. But we're currently in a free-to-play beta. In the future, we're considering doing a subscription model, but we're not sure just yet. If we do, it'll be something pretty cheap, like $5 per semester or $20 for a lifetime. Really just to get in donations, potentially to like fund a award for SGDA games that really excel, or just to sort of fund like commercial games that we want to put on the cabinet. Because it is a full-on gaming computer. It supports pretty much any AAA game. I've gotten Mortal Kombat 11 to run at ultra settings at 1080p, so 60 FPS, very fun. But yeah, during the beta, we're still working on our guides as well. But if you're interested in making a game, just check out our wiki. We have a basic guide on how to create a game. For the most part, it's just support an Xbox 360 controller, and you'll support our cabinet. It's also got a little layout of what our controller looks like. And you can submit games with or without direct support for the cabinet. Even if you don't support an Xbox 360 controller, that's okay. It's preferred, but if not, it's fine. We can remap different controls to keyboard and mouse prompts thanks to Steam input. So even if your game doesn't directly support an Xbox controller, feel free to reach out, just ask if it's something possible, and we'll check it out. And in the worst case, you can just add Xbox prompts even though it doesn't support it, and we'll map it out and make it work. So like I mentioned earlier, we do have support from SGDA on this project, so award winners are featured in a special playlist. So you'll notice that most recently they had a game jam in spring of 2022, so there's about 3 games on there right now that are award winners. And there are arcade game jams that are held periodically together with SGDA. So we're planning to have one later this semester. We'll reveal more details about that at a later date. But it'll be primarily us working on it, and SGDA will kind of help with promotion. So yeah. And like I mentioned, it can play various PC and console games. It is a full-fledged gaming computer. So feel free to play your favorites like Donkey Kong or Mario Bros. Up to newer platform titles like Mario Party, or Super Smash Bros. I think is on there as well. It's not super playable, but if you want to try it. And feel free to invite friends to play in some competitive games as well. This is really a hangout spot as much as it is a open lab to work on things. So if there's a game you want to play or something you want to check out, just feel free to drop by and mess with the cabinet a bit. And we do plan to have events focusing on the arcade cabinet as well. So we're currently planning to host game nights the first Thursday of every month, starting in October or so. Our current plan is to possibly have a competitive game tournament every month. And this is all kind of to be determined, but we'll have something like finding an old retro fighting game, maybe like Street Fighter 2 or something like that. And we'll throw it on the cabinet after we get a license, allow people to know the game in advance by like a week or two, and then people can train up until then, and everybody will battle it out. So, and then we'll also look into maybe having like pizza and drinks that people can buy. We really just want to create something fun for people to do here rather than necessarily like a hobby group, just something to like have fun and hang out, meet new people here. But anybody have any questions about the arcade cabinet? All right. Doesn't look like anything online, so we'll go ahead and move on. So a upcoming station that we're really excited to offer is resin 3D printing. For those of you that don't know, resin 3D printing allows you to get a much higher detail on your 3D models compared to other printers, FDM printers, like the ones that you have seen previously. So our current plan is as follows, but all of this is subject to change as this is an upcoming station. You'll pay for resin provided by the makerspace, and there will be a small upcharge so we can maintain the printers, fund future projects, things like that. And also just because it is a bit of a hazardous space, so there will be things that we have to replace and whatnot. But it'll typically be shades of gray. So right now we have like some black, some gray, as well as clear resin. So for example, in the past, we worked with SGDA to create these trophies for their game jam, and they had like clear stands on them, and there was like a black platform. So you can really use it for some really amazing prints. And some other examples include like keycaps for your keyboard that feel really smooth on your fingers compared to something that's printed with PLA and has a lot of ridginess to it. And like previously mentioned, miniatures for tabletop games. This will be a lot better for things that are like higher detail, like swords that a character may be holding, or like little items on their hip, things like that. And like with our other options, this will be free to use with proper training. We don't have any plans as to what the training will entail at this time, but some general ideas that we've had tossed around include possibly doing a buddy system, so that way people can make sure that others are properly using gloves and masks and whatnot to avoid any sanitation or toxicity issues. But yeah, we'll make sure that everybody's safe. Safety is our number one concern with this, and that's why it's taken a while for those of you that are Makerspace members that have kind of seen the printers in the back and wanted to use them for a while. So we're making sure to take every stride to make this as beneficial but safe as possible. So does anybody have any questions about resin printing? Yes.
How's the strength compared to that? Yeah.
So if I remember correctly, it's about the same. I think, if I remember correctly, it may be a slight bit weaker than if you were to print with like PLA and whatnot. But it is a different build, sort of. So to put it into context, you're basically taking a platform and using a UV monitor, more or less, to like burn in plastic level by level by level. So there's going to be a lot more of those layers where it can really split apart easy. So there's like a tiny bit more breakage. Somebody asked, do you have curing stands too? We do have a UV curing box that students will have to use once their print is done. So for those of you that don't know, resin is actually pretty toxic to your skin. So you're going to have to use gloves whenever you use it. And whenever you're done, you're going to have to give it a little alcohol bath to get rid of as much resin as possible. And just to get the little bits that are still left on there and wet, you'll have to put it in a UV like chamber, little box sort of thing, and set it for a few minutes. So that way it'll burn in all that extra resin and you won't contaminate yourself when you touch it. Any other questions? Yes.
You guys have like high performance computers for like 3D modeling, like more complex.
So at the moment, no, unfortunately. That's something we are trying to look into. Recently, Dell has been working with us to provide some hardware. So recently they donated us a server and we've kind of been in talks with potentially getting some better computers. That is something obviously we can't guarantee, but you know, we're definitely looking into opportunities to get better hardware everywhere that we can.
To add on to that, there are some computers in the space that have SolidWorks licenses, etc., from the school. However, they're quite slow, so I would not recommend using them.
Mostly for logging in. Like once you do log in,
And get the software
Yeah.
launched.
Yeah.
that too.
But it takes about 10 minutes to do that.
All I'll say is if it takes like 3 times the time to log in compared to modeling the dang thing, you know, it's questionable if it's worth it. At that point, I mean, if you're like a CS or A-Tech major, I hope you have a gaming laptop of some sort, you know. Well, you don't need it, but a lot of people have it. I don't know. It's what the tech store says to get, so maybe some people fall for it, right? But yeah. Any other questions? And you know, obviously, you can go back to previous topics if you have any questions about those. So, all right, cool. So we're just going to quickly run through some other stations that we have that are a little less popular, but still very important to the makerspace. So we have an arts and crafts station for those of you that don't know. This doesn't require any training. We just ask that, you know, you're careful and make sure to take the proper safety precautions. We have a sewing machine, which as long as you bring your own thread, fabric, and other material, you're completely free to use. And you can work on cosplay, accessories, just general clothing, pretty much anything that you can sew and work on. You're more than free to use that. We also have a Cricut Explorer Air 2, which is sort of like it's like an overglorified CNC that cuts like paper, vinyl, t-shirt iron-ons, things like that, in a very precise manner. And you can actually set it up to where you can print something at home, bring it to the space, and then cut it. So for example, we use it for our stickers that we've given away at some of our events like Cometville. It is pretty precise, so you should have pretty good results with it as long as you use it properly. And we're also looking into some more arts and crafts opportunities as we move forward, such as a painting station, which I'll cover in a moment. We also have an electronic station, which has been sort of newly renovated by Eric, our facilities officer. It has 2 soldering stations, a oscilloscope and multimeter, and multiple power supplies, waveform, and function generators. So hopefully you can find pretty much anything you need back there. But if you can't, always feel free to ask an officer. We kind of try to keep a list of what people really want in the space. And soon we'll have a CNC station where you can cut a material using a CNC router. Sort of similar to the laser cutter, except it's a big, scary spinning drill bit. So, you know. And it's a very experimental station. We haven't messed with it too much. It was set up last semester, I believe. Is that right?
I think so.
Somewhere around there. But yeah, so we're still trying to work on a formal training for it. And it's not free for use at the moment. But if somebody does have any questions about it, they're more than free to ask, you know. Somebody asked. Oh, never mind.
No,
We're good.
we already covered that.
Yeah. Okay. So any questions about any of these stations real quick? We've got more in a second, so. Good. All right. And some other stations we have coming up. We're planning to start a conference room, which is, if you look on that side to your left, it's the furthest room kind of along that wall, the blue one. So it's a long room with 8 seats and power. Students will be able to use it for officer meetings, interviews, and other opportunities where you really need a room that's completely quiet and you may need more than one person to be able to fit in there. It's currently under renovations, but the room is completely free to use at the moment if you want to use it just for like studying or something. Officers may be going in and out of it though, so don't expect complete privacy. And ideally, once it's all renovated, we'll have something like a smart TV with Microsoft Teams. We're looking into other things as well, like soundproofing and possibly repainting the room. And then also that painting station I mentioned earlier, we're looking into a small area for people to airbrush or hand paint small objects or things they've 3D printed. So examples may include like if you 3D print a D&D miniature and you want to paint that, then you can do that there. There's been quite a few people that have painted things in the space before, so we kind of want to give a dedicated area for that because we know it's pretty important to people. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? All right. So that covers pretty much all of our stations. So just to make sure, any last questions before we move on to student orgs? Yes.
I know the CNC machine isn't ready yet.
Right.
What would the size be?
It's not very large.
Yeah.
Like a 3018?
It's you can see it. It's in that room right there. During the open house, I would recommend taking a look at it. It's not a very large station, but it is there.
Oh, and to clarify, it's a CNC mill.
Yeah.
Mill router kind of deal.
Any other questions? Just anything about the makerspace at all outside of like how to get involved. We'll get into that in a minute. All right, cool. So just to quickly sum up, Makerspace is completely free to use. We're open to all students, faculty, staff, and alumni. We're open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. on weekdays, and that excludes any student holidays, so Labor Day, those sorts of things where the university is completely closed. And some people do get a little confused, but yes, we are open during the summer. So if you recently graduated or you're staying on campus during the summer, feel free to drop by whenever and still work on something over the summer. We do have officers that stay during the summer to continue to maintain our different hardware and software. So everything should still be up to date and working when you come. But yeah, other than that, I'll go ahead and start the student organization presentations. So this will pretty much be focusing on the student organizations that are available on campus that choose to use our space as a presentation area, as well as sort of subcommittee or like subgroups within the makerspace that aren't technically their own registered entity, but we allow them to use the space and we kind of fund them directly through makerspace funding. So first we want to go ahead and give the floor to Comet Keyboards. So Ethan is here to talk about Comet Keyboards a little bit. If you want to step up to the podium.
Yeah, so it's kind of what it says. We're a group and then we focus on building custom keyboards and designing them. We started last year kind of as our own thing, and then through that we kind of like merged us with the makerspace to hold our meetups. So we do our meetups on the last Saturday of every month, like it says there. And they're generally here in this classroom area. And then, yeah, we can like show off and work on our keyboards. We have our Discord, which you can find in the Makerspace Discord. So questions can pretty much be directed there. Yeah, anything else?
Do you want to ask a question?
Any questions? No?
Comet Keyboards is one of the first groups that has really joined the Makerspace Community Committee, and we really hope to fund any technology that they may need here. And yeah, just like any other student organization, though, you know, we really want student groups to consider us a home. So feel free to reach out if there's anything you guys need. Next one. So Comet Cosplay is a new group that's starting up this semester. Some of you may have heard of the cosplay build meets that have happened here in previous semesters. Unfortunately, last semester they were canceled at the beginning of the semester because there was a lack of interest. However, we have studied what is really important to that group, and we believe that we will be able to start cosplay meets again and kind of keep them interesting for the students, because previously they were held at like such an often interval, there wasn't too much to show off every meet. So this time around, we're going to have meetings every other month. So the first one will be September 12th, and the second one this semester will be November 14th. Both of these meets will be from 6 to 8 p.m. and they will be held here in the Makerspace. So if these meets do turn out to be pretty popular, which we're hoping they will be, we can always look into hosting more meetings here, having them on a more often basis. We just really want to start out with less meetings to see if that sort of helps the population issue we had last time, where students didn't really have as much to do or as much to show off. But yeah, and you can join the community community by joining our Makerspace Discord server. There's a cosplay text channel, and you can talk about anything cosplay there. Will Kahn in the server is the leader of Comet Cosplay, so if you have any questions that I can't answer here, feel free to redirect them to him. So any quick questions about Comet Cosplay? All right, awesome. So with that, we're going to jump into the actual like full-fledged student organizations. So first, we're going to hear from the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, or AIAA.
We're a program-based organization, so we have 3 programs at the moment, and we're partnered with a 4th. Our first program is RAD. That's more of an introduction to aerospace and design. So if you're really trying to get like right into aerospace to figure out what it is and what you like, that would be the place to go. We have DART, and that's Drone Application Research and Racing. Dan and I, we run that. This is our autonomous drone, and then Dan has his racing drone there. So if drones and racing are your kind of thing, then definitely check us out. We have TechOr, and that's for rockets. So if you're a rocket kind of guy or gal, that's where you want to be. And Design Build Fly, that's our partner, and they focus on airplanes and aircraft and that kind of thing. We have weekly hands-on meetings. So each program will meet once a week, different days during the week, so you're not overlapping or anything. And throughout the semester, we hold various events where we'll have guest speakers come, or we'll show off our projects and meet with other organizations around UTD.
So our kickoff meeting, that's going to be 7:30 p.m. on the next Tuesday, September 6th. If you want to learn more about any of the projects that we're doing, like RAD, DART, TechCore, whatever, then definitely come to that meeting. You can also follow us on Instagram, AIAA_UTD, and we have a website at AIAAUTD.com. And if you want to join the Discord, that's where we're going to be posting all of the announcements and information. We have a QR code up here that you can come scan during the open house.
So next we're going to hear from the Data Science Club, or DSC, at UTD.
So I'll be representing the DSC. This is the Data Science Club. I'm the president for it this semester. We usually hold a lot of different types of events, like speaker events, workshops, just everything about data science. So we'll have like a lot of industry speakers come in for seminars and speaker sessions. We'll do like workshops over like popular data science tools, and as you can see through like my Naruto meme, like these are like the type of technologies we use. We also do like socials and networking events, just everything data basically. And these are like some of our past sponsors and partners. Here's a QR code for our link tree. If you guys are interested, we have a Discord. on our Instagram, and we will actually be having our kickoff here next Friday. So definitely come to that if you're interested in joining the Data Science Club.
And next, we're going to hear from IEEE Forge.
Hey guys, my name's Dylan, and welcome to the Forge. It's basically a subcommittee under IEEE, which is Institute of Electrical Engineers and Electronic Engineers. And basically, the Forge is comprised of like 4 project managers with members in them, where we'll be designing a project based on engineer solutions to the real world. And we have 4 projects right here: the hearing aid utilizing op amps, data logger using real-time operating system, CPU, and a facial recognition system. We'll have bi-weekly meetings here actually every Tuesday, but I think the first one is on Monday starting September 13th. First though, you guys would have to apply right there, and you guys would have to finish our application form. But like our members in previous years have gotten like a bunch of internships based on these projects. So if you guys want like more projects on your resume, you guys should probably apply here. And if you have questions, just email us, email me at that email. And yeah, do you guys have any questions? Yeah. IEEE is a whole club itself, but the Forge is like a subcommittee where we actually do the projects. So you should honestly, yeah, apply. The QR code's right there, and you just have to do the application form, and that's it. And then yeah, but yeah, any other questions? All right, thank you guys.
And next, we're going to hear from OpenUTD.
Most of the software on your computer is proprietary. You can't look at the source code behind it. If you are technically skilled enough and you think you might be able to add a new feature or fix a bug, you can't really do anything about it. You can't fix it yourself. And if the company or organization that maintains that app that you use goes under, you're out of luck. And all the time that you put into learning it might have gone to waste. But what if there was a different way? I'd like to tell you all about free and open source software, which is a different vision for programming. Now, with open source software, you can look at the actual code behind the apps that you use. Oftentimes, communities around some piece of software are able to contribute back to the code base. And many of the software you already use might be open source, like Blender or Linux. And at OpenUTD, you can hang out with other people that are passionate about this kind of thing. So whether you care about internet privacy, democracy in computing, or you're just a real nerd about customizing and rising your desktop, OpenUTD has something for you. Thank you.
And last but not least of our student organizations is the Student Game Developer Association, or SGDA.
Hi, everyone. I'm representing SGDA. I'm Tristan, the president. If you haven't heard of us, Hudson kind of talked about us a little bit. We're basically an organization that helps other students make games. We have a bunch of different kind of events. We meet every Wednesday at 7 p.m. here, and it's going to be, our first meeting is this Wednesday. So please come out. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have all sorts of things. Our first meeting is going to be a social. We'll have different events where you can play other developers' games. We have workshops, so even if you don't know anything about game development, we'll help you out. We have a lot of really cool industry speakers that come in from like id, Gearbox, just to name a few for this semester. And then we're going to have our game jam this in about a month, which definitely feel free to come out. If you are not in the Discord, I hope many of you are. Please join the Discord. We'll have more announcements there. That's about it. Is there any questions? We make games for the arcade machine too.
And if anybody has any questions about the student organizations that were just talked about, feel free to just go talk to them after this presentation. I haven't checked with each of them directly, but I'm sure a lot of them would like to hear from you after the presentation, just about any questions or comments that you may have. So next we'd like to jump into committees. So back to the makerspace. We actually do have a variety of ways that you can get involved if you'd like to, outside of just being a member. These are really opportunities to build your resume on top of just really joining a community of like-minded people and people that just have different interests than you. We've worked on a variety of projects in-house, such as our Discord bot. At one point, I think we were trying to build like a portable gaming console, kind of like the Steam Deck before it was a thing. But you know, you kind of get the gist. And yeah, I guess we'll jump into the first one. Oh, hold on. Someone asked, for those attending the open house remote, will the slides be available for download? I can include those in the description of the video we upload to YouTube. I think that'll be the easiest way to distribute it. So yes, I will do my best to make those available. But yeah, so committees, like I said, just a way to get involved. And we've got 3 different ones to showcase here today that you're able to apply to and join. Just to get it out of the way real quick, we don't have any formal applications at this time for any of these. So really the best way to do so is to just join the Discord server, hang out with us for a bit, just work on your own projects, do whatever. And then, you know, just mention that you want to join a committee. One of our officers will come in and help you out, because we're really looking for people that are involved and want to help, more so than people that can write pretty and, you know, talk yourself up. So, so let's get started. So our first committee is the community committee. So I like to say this is kind of like the face of the student organization in a way. The community committee will help with hosting and planning events. So these include things like our in-house events, such as the Makerspace Kickoff, our arcade cabinet events that we plan to hold, anything that's like in-person training, potentially, if we plan to do like a mass training in person instead of online one day, maybe. Just anything that students come in person and really participate in, or online, like this event, as well as external events. So that would be things like general boothing at the Student Union, Cometville, or, you know, just showing freshmen the ropes and whatnot. We work with various makerspace groups in the community committee, such as Comet Cosplay and Comet Keyboards, with events as they're needed. And we are always looking for new groups to kind of help foster within our community. So if there's a special interest that there's not really a club for at UT Dallas, but you don't know if you want to make it a club yet, feel free to ask us, and we can look into turning it into a bit of a mini event here that's sponsored by us. Obviously, we want to help foster growth, though, so we totally understand if once you hit enough people, you want to become your own org, and we totally encourage that. So don't worry if you think we're just going to like hold on to your idea forever or something like that. Recruiting guidelines. We just ask that you're creative. You can help come up with fun and interesting makerspace events. For example, at Cometville, we didn't have too much going on this semester. We just had a 3D print people could touch and look at. And we talked about the makerspace in general. If you want to help plan something more interesting for the next Cometville, like if you want to make a little video game based on the makerspace, like 3D printing or our mascot, or you want to work on some sort of like Carney game, just anything that sounds interesting to students and will pull their attention, we totally welcome that. And we're also really looking for people that are willing to help host events in person if it fits their schedule. We really rely on manpower as a makerspace, because, you know, all of our officers aren't always free to really promote the space, and there's not a ton of members that are knowledgeable in a lot of the fields. So, and following up on that is enjoying all things makerspace. You don't have to know like the intricate details of everything. We totally understand that everybody has their own specialties and whatnot. So as long as you have like a general idea of what technology we have and you're willing to speak to people about it, we'd really appreciate the help. So does anybody have any questions about the community committee? Yes.
So what are those external events?
Yeah, so for those that don't know, boothing just generally means anything where we're kind of tabling and trying to get members to join. So that would be like in the Student Union, if we just have a table and we're trying to say, you know, hey, we're the makerspace, here's a flyer, join us, that sort of thing. And then there's certain events throughout the year like Cometville, which are really intended for people to come and learn about student organizations as a whole. So Cometville was last Wednesday, and tons of organizations came by and participated. There's also different events that happen throughout the semester similarly. So I believe this Wednesday at 11, I may be wrong, there is a student org fair for ECS. So that would be like Makerspace, IEEE, anybody that's like within that field. And you can see all those orgs at ECS West in the courtyard. So those types of events are what you would help with. event I just talked about? Yeah. So I believe there's a student org fair for ECS. So that's computer science and engineering. And I believe that'll be happening at ECS West, 11 a.m. or so, Wednesday. I'm not completely sure on the time, but you should be able to find it if you look up ECS Weeks of Welcome. Is that right?
It's 11.
Okay, it's 11. We're good. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, awesome. So next one is a bit more technical. This is our facilities committee. So the facility committee is really what manages a lot of our hardware in-house. So facilities will help manage lots of important information on our wiki. That'll be things like our hardware lists, where things are, maybe guides on how to use certain equipment. So for example, if you're trying to use the 3D printer and you forgot something within your training, guides created by members of the facilities committee are what really allow you to continue learning and sort of, help you with things that you may have forgotten. For example, one of my favorites is there's a guide on how to change colors mid-print on an Ender 3, which can be pretty helpful if you want to make like little keychains that change color or like a coaster, something like that. Facilities committee members also clean the space and move equipment as needed. Obviously, we don't expect this of everyone. You can just excel in one of these areas. You don't have to do all of them, but anybody that's willing to sort of move things around and help us find the most optimal positions for things, like we just moved the entire electronics station a bit to make it a bit more accessible to students. Just any feedback really helps us, and manpower especially. And just assisting members who need help in general. So if somebody's like trying to find a tool and they've got no idea where one is, in the past we've had some issues with like students going into AIAA's tool area. Not so much anymore, but it's something we want to avoid. So helping students really find those tools so they don't have to go to other places really helps. Helping a member learn how to use a tool is also important. So some people may not know how to use something like a soldering iron, even though we have training on our website. We've got like a little guide on our wiki. So it really helps if somebody is here to sort of walk someone through, or online on Discord, just saying like, hey, I know how to solder. If you want to meet me at this time. And then also really important, maintaining our equipment. So our 3D printers can have issues pretty often, and it really helps having someone know how to diagnose those issues and fix them. We're constantly working on them to try and tune them to be better, as well as repairing them to make sure that they are up to the standards that people would expect with Makerspace. So occasionally you'll see printers maybe down back there. It's for good reason. We just want to make sure everybody's safe and that everything is coming out as expected, so you don't waste your money or your time. General recruiting guidelines. We just ask that people are good at writing documentation, or able to lift heavy objects, or patient with being asked questions and just giving answers to those. You don't have to excel in all of these areas. It really helps if you just excel at one or many of them. We'll take anybody we can get for the most part. It's relatively simple work as well, as long as you're willing to put in the time and come to the space and really commit to helping us. So does anybody have any questions about the facilities committee? All right, awesome. So yeah, just general maintenance and documentation, more or less. And then finally, we have the IT committee. So this is your general sort of CS committee. We've got a lot of programming done here, and server management, all sorts of things. So a big thing is managing our server infrastructure. So we use discord.js and node.js for our Discord bot, Docker and Proxmox for software containers, Home Assistant for automations. We've looked into using Python for a smart lock for some of our 3D printers. We use Octoprint for our 3D printers. All sorts of technologies are used here, as you can see. So if you excel at any of these, we'd love to have you work on something here and really help us improve the space. For example, we've considered adding like lights above certain doors, so that way people can tell from a glance if they're booked or not. So that would hook into Home Assistant, which would pull from our Google Calendar, and everything would just kind of work in a way that would be really convenient for students. So if you're interested in working on creative technology projects, feel free to ask if we have an opening, and right now we definitely do. So we also are looking for people that can assist with infrastructure problems. So if somebody can't log into a computer, for example, or there's issues with our Discord bot, because that is a really important resource for some students to be able to check when their 3D prints will be done on the go. and also just any hardware and website outages. We run into those occasionally. It's not all that bad, but when they do happen, it is pretty bad. You know, we want to jump on that right away, and sometimes we don't have people available, so it really helps to have as many hands on deck as possible. General recruiting guidelines, we're looking for anybody that's experienced in or willing to help with the following back or the above backends. We totally understand if you don't have experience, you know. Some people are new to CS, some people have learned a lot of languages or things in the past, but they don't know the backends we already have. It's totally understandable. I didn't know React, and then in 2 weeks I made the Makerspace website. So, you know, if you're willing to learn and put in the time, totally understand if you don't know something beforehand. And, you know, if you're willing to quickly hop on an issue if one arises, we don't expect you to come to the space necessarily. Obviously, you know, if things happen, you're going to be in the middle of class potentially or with your family. So we just ask once you have a second to hop on, if you could help us diagnose an issue or help a student because they can't sign in, things like that. They're usually small issues that can be pretty easily helped. Yeah, just general IT. But does anybody have any questions about that? All right. Yes.
So we can sign up for something like this even though we don't know some stuff about it.
Right.
Like, I'm not the best at Python. I'm going to Java.
Yeah. So even if you're not the best at a certain language, you know, we're really a community about learning, right? So I don't think it would be fair for us to say, you know, hey, we're all here to help learn. Oh, but you can't learn this. Sorry. So all our committees are completely open to people that really want to try new things. You know, we're not looking for the best of the best. We're not looking for takeouts either. We just really want to get people that are involved and interested in what they want to do, you know. Somebody can be really good at like Discord bots, but hate, you know, being a part of our committee for some reason, right? We wouldn't be as interested in having them as we would be someone who's willing to get in, try to learn the back end, and really put an effort in. So, any other questions? Awesome. So that concludes committees. Just briefly before we move on to the open house, that pretty much concludes our presentation. So does anybody have any questions at all? It can be about the Makerspace, 3D printing, a committee, just not student organizations for right now. That'll be safe for the open house. Yes, sorry.
Is this presentation available after?
Yeah, so we're planning to upload this to our YouTube channel. Are you in ECS by chance?
Yes.
Okay, so Rod, who's our current advisor, sent out an ECS all email with information about this event. So in that same email, he posted a YouTube channel link. You can also find it on our Discord server. If you go to that YouTube channel, we'll upload this presentation there, and we'll try to include a link to the slides. Any other questions? Yes.
If you don't mind me asking, I'm just kind of like curious as to how the Makerspace was like funded. I mean, I'm a freshman, I'm not really sure like how student organizations are getting funded.
Yeah, of course. So most student organizations are funded primarily through the SOC or some sort of other external funding. Like some ECS student organizations receive funding from ECS. We receive payments from ECS that we can use for different Makerspace like purchases. So if we need to get like t-shirts or new equipment, things like that. However, sometimes we can't use all that, or well, okay, we can use all that money. It's just we can't use more money because it's hard for us to request additional funding, you know. So donations always help. We're trying to look into setting up better donation methods right now because that's something we've kind of struggled with in the past. That's why we're working on the arcade cabinet, for example, as possibly a revenue source for us. That's why we have the slight upcharge on the resin printing when that'll come out. We really want to make sure that it's more of an option as to whether or not you're donating to us, because obviously our first priority is offering these tools at like a very, very cheap cost. Because not everybody has access to these, you know, like a lot of people do have 3D printers, but not everyone in like engineering and computer science and whatnot. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question for the most part. Okay, awesome. Any other questions? And yeah, student organizations in general, if you have any questions about those, I know a lot of you may be freshmen, so. Anything at all? Yes. Yeah. So if you go to utd.ms, which is our website, utd.ms/discord. That'll be a direct link to our Discord. There's also just a little icon at utd.ms, which you can click. Anybody else? All right. Double check. Yep. All right. Looks like we're good. So with that being said, we're officially done with the presentation portion. I hope everybody learned a bit more about us. And as I mentioned, officers from different student organizations and the Makerspace will be standing around here to answer any questions. Everybody to my left is a student organization, Makerspace officer. So if you have any questions about the Makerspace, they'll be hanging around different areas and answering questions as need be. Then obviously OpenUTD, SGDA, IEEE, AIAA, DSC, yes. They will all be here to answer questions, at least briefly. So just go by the officer that talked about their org for a split second if you've got anything. We're officially gonna be here for about 30 more minutes. After that, the Makerspace will close at 9 p.m., but you are free to stay after. Just keep in mind, if you leave anything in here, it will be locked in until 7 a.m. tomorrow. So please make sure you grab all your belongings before you head out. And for those of you that don't know the space, we do have a big open lab here in the back, and there are various rooms along the sides, and there is a lounge in the far back. We do ask that you don't check out the cubicles that way. That is all like students, workers, and professors that have those cubicles. They're not ours. Please don't go there. And if you need to use the restroom or need water, if you go down the hallway, take a right, there's an elevator. Directly across from it, there's restrooms and a water fountain. So any other last minute questions about like locations, anything important? All right, awesome. And like mentioned, this is just an open house, not an official tour or anything. So feel free to just walk around, see what interests you, and ask questions. Yeah. Have a good one, guys.